This is what happened in the world since we last uploaded. It was a week where the news went to the dogs.
The cheeky pup snatching a microphone from a Russian weather presenter while she was on air. After a brief chase, the pair, along with the slightly battered microphone, managed to finish the weather report.
The weather, windy with a chance of someone going to the big farm in the sky. But our week began on Thursday with the spotlight on the vaccine rollout. Earlier this year, the federal government announced plans to administer 4 million jabs by the end of March.
And we hoped by the end of March, I should say, to have reached some 4 million population.
But as March ended, the government declared April Fools.
Australia's vaccine rollout is under the microscope, criticised for being too slow.
The federal government is 3.4 million jabs behind schedule.
Behind schedule? A bus running 5 minutes late is behind schedule. You're 3.4 million off a 4 million target. You get better vaccination rates at a Byron Bay kindergarten. And in a turn of events that will shock you, the Prime Minister deflected the blame.
The challenges Australia has had has been a supply problem. It's pure and simple. There was over 3 million doses from overseas that were contracted that never came.
And while the government was preparing to torch the European Union's EU-Bay trusted seller rating, the European Union denied the PM's claim. The government, in turn, said the EU was arguing semantics, and far be it for me to be anti-semantic. One thing's for sure, if we are going to reach our targets, Queensland is going to have to step up.
Over the Easter weekend on Sunday, none of our state-run vaccination clinics were open and only 34 vaccinations were managed over the weekend. That is a snail's pace.
Snailed it. Maybe the government should hand the rollout over to Coles, which in the past 4 months alone has administered around 42 million hot cross buns, successfully inoculating millions of Australians against an epidemic of rumbling tummies. Instead, our vaccine is being rolled out like the NBN. In fact, our rollout is ranked 90th in the world. Countries like Chile, UAE and Russia not only have more people per capita vaccinated than us, but thanks to quicker internet, they can get faster results when they Google whether or not vaccines cause autism. Well, that's just what we get with going for Pfizer to the node. The pace of the rollout is particularly concerning as the colder months approach, or to put it in a more ominous way,
winter is coming. Winter is coming.
Winter is coming.
You know, I haven't seen the last season of Game of Thrones, but I assume he means that this will all be resolved in a manner that will satisfy everyone and all our favourite people will survive. To Friday, specifically Good Friday, and Big Jesus news from Brazil. Literally, Big Jesus news from Brazil.
The Christ the Redeemer statue is getting a facelift.
40 architects working alongside archaeologists, piece by piece of intricate mosaic artwork, checked and secured, the rust removed and parts finished.
That's why he disappears over Easter. He was having work done. Now, Good Friday is notoriously the slowest news day of the year. Well, except for that one time, obviously. So ABC News 24's Jeremy Fernandez used the clear airtime as an opportunity to walk us through the history of the hot cross bun.
Marking the top of a bun or cake has been around for thousands of years. Here's a bun from 79 AD, found in the ashes outside Pompeii.
Looks delicious, and I have so many questions, like, well, how did they make these markings?
Early markings on the tops of cakes were simply with a knife.
OK, well, that's all my questions done. Thank you, Jeremy Fernandez.
It was probably so the cake could be easily split.
Well, I mean, that seems obvious. Shall we move on now?
Hot cross buns also used this knife method.
Great. Knives used to cut things. I mean, I'd hardly call it a method, but whatever. Jeremy Fernandez there.
The first reports of our modern spiced hot cross buns are from the 14th century.
The 14th century? Wow, I swear they're out earlier every year. Great. So that was ABC News 24's report on...
By the 18th century, Good Friday had become synonymous with the hot cross bun.
How are we only up to the 18th century? I mean, could this get any more annoying?
1 a penny for a large bun or 2 a penny for a small bun. A cry that became the famous rhyme responsible for this.
ABC News 24 there, really making you feel every minute of those 24 hours. To Saturday. And you may be aware that earlier this year I had some strong thoughts on a series of animals. I hate that duck. I hate that koala. I love a hard cock. Well, I do hate that duck. and that koala, my opinion on roosters is consistent. And now I have a new enemy. Sexy flies.
Look out, ladies, 90 million single and sterile studs are coming to a fruit tree near you, deployed as weapons of mass seduction. The frisky flies are specifically bred to be strong, fit and irresistible to their female counterparts.
That's right, impossibly sexy flies. So sexy you'll know exactly why oh why you swallowed that fly. But those airborne sex machines aren't just fly candy, they've also got a very important job.
A serious fruit fly outbreak in 11 areas is threatening South Australia's $1.3 billion horticultural industry. Now these swarms are being released at just 150 metres over suburban areas to use sex to trick the locals out of a future, offering passion but no reproduction, breaking the insect's life cycle.
All passion, no reproduction. These flies are living my 20s. I mean, look at them. They're bloody skydiving. Which brings me to the thing that annoys me most about these impossibly beautiful flies. This.
Over the next 10 weeks, the flies will be winging it from this low-flying aircraft that'll be circling the suburbs.
You're catching a plane. You're flies. Fly. Your balls don't work, but your wings are fine. I hate those sexy, sterile flies. To Sunday, and we finally got a resolution to the biggest mystery of the year.
Princess Anne has been accused of being the senior royal who made a comment about the skin colour of Meghan and Harry's son Archie.
Yes! I had Anne in the Royal Racist Office sweep. In your face, Big Ted. And in more interesting royal news, Egypt's greatest treasure, its collection of pharaohs, was paraded across the capital in a spectacular display.
No expense was spared for the March of the Mummies as the great pharaohs were paraded through Cairo en route to their new home.
22 mummies in total transferred from the ageing neoclassical Egyptian museum. Travelling in climate-controlled comfort, the mummified bodies lay in oxygen-free nitrogen capsules. The trucks are designed to look like the very boats that once sailed the famous river with mummies on board.
But the ceremony was about more than just honouring the dead. It was about getting them off our backs.
Egypt's mummies have long been associated with superstition and foreboding. A series of disasters has hit the country as it prepared for this event, culminating in the blockage of the Suez Canal. Evidence of the pharaoh's curse, some say, now hoping this event will instead bring good fortune.
Absolutely makes sense. Ask any Egyptologist. In the event of a pharaoh's curse, stage an elaborate live-streamed laser-lit motorcade, or as the pharaohs themselves put it, bird, cat-bird, dog-face man, motorcade. On Monday, I ended the long weekend catching up on some reading, specifically a leaked outtake from former US Speaker John Boehner's audiobook that gave new meaning to a tell-all.
Take it from me, you'll never know where you'll end up. That's freedom. I'll raise a glass to that any day. P.S. Ted Cruz, go f*** yourself.
And I'll raise a glass to that any day. And as we returned to work the next morning, Victoria Police would go back with the right to remain silent.
The Victoria Police will be getting in on the act with the right to disconnect. Now, that means no work-related calls, emails or worries while off the clock.
Yeah, makes sense. You should only call police if it's an emergency. On Tuesday, controversial football star Israel Folau was back in the papers.
A full-page ad in the Daily Telegraph, paid for by the Australian Christian lobby, called for the star footballer to be welcomed back to Australian competition.
I know it's Easter, but surely there's a limit to the number of resurrections you can expect out of Israel. Then the belated bubble between Australia and Bieland was finally announced.
It is time to dust off the passport. International holidays will soon be a reality. Quarantine-free travel between New Zealand and Australia commencing in less than a fortnight.
That means if you are an Australian and you want to book a holiday to New Zealand, you can go there. No mandatory 14 days in hotel quarantine, none of that. You go about your business like you did just before COVID-19.
That's right. Herds of unvaccinated Australians will be rushing to score a seat on an international canister of communal air. Kia ora, my friends. The confirmed arrangement caused more joy than hearing a New Zealander pronounce the word egg, but not everyone was enthused.
I think it's a good thing. I mean, but we've got to be careful that Kiwi culture doesn't submerge Australian culture, Carl, don't we? I mean, I'll never want to see my esky call my chili bin.
Ooh.
I don't want my thongs being called my jandals.
Yeah, Bill, I mean, what's next? The Kiwi culture where Labor leaders win elections in landslides? No, thank you. And in actual former Prime Minister news, last week Malcolm Turnbull was appointed as chief to the New South Wales government's Net Zero Emissions Board.
The former Prime Minister was given a new role by the New South Wales government, but his anti-coal stance has caused controversy.
And if you know anything about Malcolm Turnbull, anti-coal stances and the Liberal Party, then there was only one conclusion.
Former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull has been dumped from his role on a government climate board just a week after his appointment.
Ah, well, better luck next time, planet. So why was Turnbull dumped? For backing calls for a freeze on new coal mines. Because the last thing you want on your net zero board is someone trying to get to net zero. I mean, how would it look?
There it is, that's politics, right?
It may not sound scandalous, but New South Wales Deputy Premier John Barilaro sure spiced it up.
I gave the benefit of the doubt to Malcolm Turnbull, but you're right, he pulled my pants down within 48 hours of his appointment.
Wow, and he lost his job for that. Well, maybe the Liberal Party has changed. Wednesday, and we caught up with the first meeting of Scott Morrison's Cabinet Women's Task Force.
Wasting no time, the Women's Task Force convened for its inaugural meeting in Canberra today.
It gives us a good chance to take stock of what we are already doing.
Probably a short meeting then.